We came up to what we call term sheets. Term sheets are, this is what the outline, this is what it looks like. We think this is your end state. And we took the Ukrainian term sheet, then we got what's called the Russian term sheet, they call it a memorandum, and we put them together. And we said, okay, how can you meld these two documents together to get to an end state? And we are pretty comfortable right now. We know what that looks like. We know what an end state could look like, should look like, and if we can just get to that point, we think it's winnable. Winnable meaning you can get to a peace agreement, and that's where you really want to get to.
Could you, sorry, could you share a little bit more on this end state that you've been mentioning? How does it look like?
Yeah, well, when we talk about it, the term sheet, we talk about I call it a comprehensive ceasefire. Comprehensive means air, land, sea, infrastructure. And as their Minister of Defense, Umarov, said when I talked to him about it, he said, General, you've asked me the same question numerous times, and I've given you the same answer numerous times. No shooting means no shooting. I said, okay, I get that, okay. So when Umarov said that to me, he said, okay, I understand what a ceasefire means. And that's what we want to get to is comprehensive ceasefire. We call it ceasefire in place. Ceasefire in place meaning the ground you are physically on, that is the ground that is yours now. You occupy that. And that's okay. Does this mean de jure or de facto? By law or just by the simple fact that you're physically on the ground and as your soldiers are there holding that ground? And then we want to get to that. We want to get to the return of the children, the prisoners that are out there, that made a sustainable ceasefire long-term, sustainable not only for the Ukrainians but for Europe as well. And then try to get the Russians back into what I would call the League of Proper Nations. So everybody's kind of working together. That we're all, you know, there's a level of, you kind of balance it out. Meaning, you can all live with the results of this for the long term. That's where you want to get something that's sustainable long term. You don't want to do this. We don't want to see a war start again in 3 or 4 or 5 years. You just don't want to go there.
Thank you for that. So we're sitting here in Brussels, and obviously we've seen Europeans stepping up in many, many ways. They're not directly at the negotiating table, but they have been scaling up their support for Ukraine. As you know, France and the UK leading the so-called coalition of the willing. To what extent is the United States today ready to, first of all, how do you perceive the role of Europe and what it's been doing over these past months to support Ukraine and step up? And secondly, how do you see US role in supporting this coalition of the willing, and how could it translate concretely?
Yeah, I think what's important is unity of the alliance. Everybody staying together, working together. That's absolutely critical. I think that what you don't want to do is, the term I would use here is American term, you don't want any stray voltage. You want to make sure that everybody's in lockstep going forward. And I think that's critical. And you're seeing, and we primarily work with what we call the E3, the Brits, the French, and the Germans as well. And the fact is, we recently had Prime Minister Starmer come to the United States. We've had President Macron come to the United States. And I think that's important, where the alliance stays really together. And I think that sends a very clear message to everybody. And I think it's important. It's important not only for European, the alliance itself, but I think it sends a clear message to President Putin that the alliance is not breakable. It's an unbreakable alliance. We're going to be around, you know, a week from Tuesday. We're not going to go anywhere. And I think that's a critical message that needs to be sent. And it's just not to Russia, but to the entire globe as well. That it's an alliance that's been together for a long time, and it's going to stay together as well.
So we're just a couple of days away from the NATO summit in The Hague, and Ukraine obviously is going to be an important piece of that. You know, you just said it's important to show unity. It's important to show strength, especially during this meeting, for the reasons you just outlined. From a Trump administration perspective and from your perspective, what would constitute a successful summit?